Natasha's breath came unevenly, her body still straddling Tony's as his words echoed between them. Freedom, that single word had shaken her more than any truth serum ever could. She wanted to scoff, to tell him he didn't understand. But she couldn't. Because for the first time in her life, someone was offering her a way out. Her fingers curled against his chest, her muscles taut with instinct. "No one escapes the Red Room, Tony," she whispered. "No one." His smirk didn't waver. "Then it sounds like a challenge." Before she could react, Tony's hands gripped her waist and flipped her, sending them tumbling off the couch. She hit the floor with a sharp gasp, his weight pinning her down and keeping her exactly where he wanted. God. Am I really this weak? Am I falling for him? His eyes. Natasha was a trained assassin, the best the Red Room had ever produced. No one had ever dared flip her like that, to dominate her in a fight. Yet here she was, flat on her back, looking up at Tony Stark, of all people, and he wasn't done that he grabbed her shirt and tore it open. The sound of ripping fabric filled the room, cool air kissed her skin, her toned stomach rising and falling with every uneven breath. She was wearing a black bra with a little gun tugged between her left breast and bra. Tony took the gun and threw it away. "If you want," he murmured, "I'll erase every single trace of the Red Room. In one day." Her breath hitched. "God, he's serious." "No, it's the drugs." But, she had spent years trying to sever her ties, to reclaim what little of herself the Red Room hadn't destroyed. And here he was, offering to burn it all to the ground as if it were nothing but an inconvenience. The temptation was dizzying, but temptation was weakness. And she had never been weak. Her hand moved without hesitation. In blur, she reached under the couch, fingers curling around cold steel, the pistol whipped out, the muzzle pressing against Tony's throat. His pulse beat steady beneath the barrel. "You think you can just say pretty words and make me betray everything I know?" she hissed, green eyes burning. "I could kill you right now. End this game. Complete my mission." Tony didn't flinch. He didn't pull away. If anything, his lips quirked in amusement. "Then do it." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "I mean it, Romanoff," he pressed, tilting his throat closer to the gun. "Pull the trigger. Prove me wrong. Kill me, go back to the Red Room, and spend the rest of your life as their puppet. Used. Controlled. Never free." The gun trembled slightly in her grasp. "Or." His lips hovered near hers, his voice a quiet promise. "Join me." Her heartbeat slammed against her ribs. "Let me burn them to the ground. Let me give you your freedom. Your life back." Her throat tightened. This was a game. A game of control, of power. She had mastered it. Yet somehow, he was winning. The weight of possibility crushed her. One pull of the trigger. 1 second. That's all it would take, and yet, she hesitated. Tony's voice was softer now. "Your single choice could free them all." Natasha sucked in a sharp breath. The other widows. Girls taken from their homes. Molded into killers. Forced to kill each other to survive and become the best. Trained to obey. Just like she had spent her entire life believing escape was an illusion. That freedom was meant for others, but now, Tony was offering something she had never dared to dream of. A way out, not just for her, but for all of them. Her grip on the gun was steady, but her voice was not. "Why?" Tony exhaled, his fingers brushing against the bare skin of her waist. Just a whisper of contact, yet it made her hyper-aware of his presence. "That's a stupid question, Nat." She hated when he called her that. It made her feel real. "Try me." She pressed the gun harder against his throat. Tony smirked, voice dropping lower. "Because I see you, Romanoff." Her breath caught. "You walk around pretending you don't want anything. That you don't need anything. But I know better. I see the way you hesitate before pulling the trigger. The way you look at families on the street. The way you pretend you don't want more." Her jaw clenched. You don't know me. His gaze held steady. Don't I? She should have called him arrogant. Overconfident, but deep down, she knew it wasn't arrogance, it was a certainty. She tested him, pushing the barrel harder into his throat. A final chance for him to flinch. To show fear, but he didn't. Tony just looked at her. If you're lying to me. Her voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. Tony smiled. Then you can kill me yourself. She searched his face, looking for deception. A crack. A lie. There was none. Her gun trembled slightly. Her pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed at her to complete the mission and be done with it, but she let it fall. The cold metal slipped from her fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Tony didn't reach for it. He just waited. She grabbed his collar and pulled him down, crashing her lips against his. Tony didn't hesitate. He kissed her back with equal hunger, his hands cupping her face, his body pressing against hers. Heat surged through her veins, drowning out the doubt, the fear, the hesitation. This was reckless. Dangerous. A mistake, but it felt right. She broke the kiss, her lips brushing against his as she whispered, 24 hours. Tony arched a brow. That's all I get? She smirked. You said you could destroy the Red Room in a day. Prove it. His eyes flickered, then darkened with something unreadable. And if I do? Natasha held his gaze. Then my life belongs to you. Something shifted in his expression. She had surprised him. His thumb brushed her jaw, voice quieter now. Careful, Romanoff. That almost sounds like a vow. Her smirk deepened. It is. I might make you cook, do laundry, do my bed, clean my shoes. He leaned forward and whispered into her ears. I might take advantage of you, just like right now. Like this. In every single way. Her pulse quickened, but her voice was steady. If you can destroy the Red Room in 24 hours, then I will do whatever you ask. I will become your woman, wake you up with blowjobs every day, give you sex whenever you want. Even if it means you are going to keep me naked in your house as your own fuck toy. I won't complain or object. My body is yours to play with, and I'll do everything I can to please you. He chuckled, shaking his head. You really have some intense fetish, don't you? You started it. She blushed. You tried to drug me. I simply returned the favor. How did you do it? How did you drug me? She asked. Ah. Don't you want to know? Tony smiled and kissed her on the neck. Maybe I'll tell you someday. He stood up and stretched his arms. This surprised Natasha. She was expecting him to take off her bra and do the deed right there. She was hoping he would fuck her right on the floor, right on that very spot. The thought of sex made her heart flutter. God, he's not gonna leave me here, is he? After he got me so aroused. The drug's effect was still in her body. Tony ordered Legion to cleanse her body of drugs. The nanites went into action, purging every single drug in her system, and just like that, her senses returned. What the? Natasha felt normal again, and even though the effect was neutralized, she was horny. But she somehow composed herself and sat up on the floor. Tony extended his hand. She accepted his hand and stood up. She felt a bit embarrassed but kept her emotions under control. So, what happens now? Natasha asked. Now? Now, you will give me the location of Red Room's main base, Tony said as he sat on the couch and crossed his legs. He took out his phone from his pocket and placed it on the table. He activated the holographic projection mode. Instantly, the world map appeared, hovering over the coffee table. Please. He motioned his hand towards the map. The holographic world map hovered in the air above the phone. Red markers blinked on the map, indicating the known locations of the Red Room's bases. There were 2 main bases, 3 dummy sites, and 6 sub-bases. A sprawling network, deeply entrenched in secrecy. Natasha crossed her arms, staring at the display. The two main bases, she said, reaching out to highlight the critical locations. This one here, deep in Siberia, that's where they train the new widows. The second, in the Ural Mountains, is for the important officials. That's where they pull the strings. Tony leaned back against the couch, nodding. And the others? The sub-bases are for supply chains, intelligence, and operations. The dummy sites? Distractions. If you hit one of those, the real base vanishes before you can even blink. Tony smirked. Classic shell game. Smart. But not smart enough. Natasha arched an eyebrow. You keep talking like you already have a plan. Tony picked up his beer and took a sip before placing the bottle back down. That's because I do. She narrowed her eyes. There's no way you're taking them all down in 24 hours. Even if you cut off their supply lines, they'll just scatter and regroup like they always do. Tony leaned forward, placing his elbows on his knees, his smirk never fading. That's the thing, Nat. I want them to scatter. I want them to run because they're all going to end up in one place. He tapped his fingers against the map, right over the Ural Mountains. The second main base. Their last stronghold. Natasha stared at him. You're forcing them to retreat to one location. Exactly, Tony said, his eyes gleaming. Cut off their sub-bases. Eliminate their hideouts. Kill their information network and field spies. Make them desperate. Make them think they have only one safe place left. Her mind worked fast, analyzing his strategy. Even if you pull that off, which is a big if, you'd still have hundreds of highly trained assassins, scientists, and operatives all in one place. Tony's smirk deepened. Good. That's exactly what I want. Natasha inhaled sharply. You're planning something big. You have no idea. She studied him for a moment, searching his face. Tony wasn't reckless but arrogant, sure, but never reckless. If he was this confident, then he knew something she didn't. She leaned forward. How? Sorry, Nat. I can't trust you yet, Tony chuckled, shaking his head. That's a secret. All you need to do is sit back and enjoy the show. Natasha scowled. Tony, he held up a hand. Nope. No spoilers. Just trust me. Her jaw clenched. You're asking me to trust you with everything, my past, my future, my life, but you won't even tell me what you're planning? Tony's expression softened slightly. He reached forward, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Nat, he said, voice low, I need you to trust me on this. Because if I tell you, you'll want to get involved. And I can't have you in the middle of it. Natasha swallowed hard, her pulse quickening. Why not? Because I need you to be safe. Her breath hitched. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever thought about keeping her out of danger. She was always the one sent into danger. She shook her head. That's not how this works, Stark. It is now. Natasha exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the table. So what? You want me to just sit here while you wipe out the entire Red Room in one night? Pretty much, yeah, Tony said, standing up and stretching. You can make popcorn if you want. She glared at him. I'm serious. So am I. Tony turned to leave, but Natasha grabbed his wrist, pulling him back. What if you fail? She asked, voice tight. His eyes met hers, unwavering. Then I'd die trying. Natasha felt her heart clench. He said it so casually, like it was just another day in the lab. She didn't like it, not one bit. Fine, she said after a moment. But when this is over, if you actually pull this off, I want answers. Tony smirked, stepping closer. Deal. She hesitated, then added, and Tony? Yeah. Her fingers curled around his shirt, and she pulled him down into a searing kiss. It wasn't soft or slow. It was raw, desperate, filled with everything she couldn't say out loud. When she finally pulled away, her lips were swollen, her breath uneven. "Come back in one piece," she whispered. Tony's smirk softened into something almost tender. "I plan to." Then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door, and Natasha was left alone, praying that Tony Stark wasn't making a mistake. Tony slid into his Audi R8, the door shutting with a soft click. He pushed the start button. He looked at the night sky, deep in thought that he was aroused. Of course, he was. Natasha Romanoff wasn't just another woman. She was the woman, dangerous, intoxicating, and brilliant in her own right. All those kisses and seduction. That was enough to send even the most rational man into a tailspin. But Tony Stark prided himself on being anything but rational. He shoved those thoughts aside and focused on the real issue at hand, trust. Or rather, the lack of it. Natasha Romanoff, she had given him everything. The Red Room's locations, their movements, their weaknesses. It was the jackpot, too easy, and that was the problem. Leaning back against the leather seat, Tony took a deep breath, fingers drumming against the wheel. Natasha was good, too good. Her manipulation techniques were legendary, her ability to weave deception through truth seamless. A trained assassin and spy like her didn't just switch sides because of a few sweet words and a promise of freedom. She wanted something. Maybe it was real. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, Tony wasn't betting his life on it. It's better to be a bit paranoid than to end up with a dagger in the chest in sleep. "Hermes," he said. A smooth, synthetic voice responded. "Yes, sir." Monitor all outgoing and incoming communications from Natasha Romanoff's known devices. Shadow her movements, but don't let her suspect a thing. I've already put the nanites into her body, but still. I don't want to take a risk. Understood. Any specific parameters? Flag any unusual activity. If she's playing both sides, I want to know before she screws me over. Understood, sir. Initializing shadow surveillance. Tony shifted gears and pulled onto the road, the city lights flashing past in a blur. His thoughts drifted to the mission ahead. 24 hours. That's all he had to erase one of the most dangerous organizations on the planet. And he would. Lab. Tony entered the lab after doing a proper scan and discarding his clothes and phone as usual. As for the car, he put the worker bots to dismantle it and check for anything suspicious, then put it back together. Time to get to work. A holographic interface flickered to life as he activated the main AI system. "Welcome back, sir." Elena's voice came through the main computer. Without wasting any time, he began hacking. His fingers danced over the projected keyboard, bypassing firewalls, decrypting encrypted data, and worming his way through layers of digital security like a ghost in the machine. Whoever designed the Red Room system was good, but Tony Stark was better. Hermes, status. All primary and subnetworks are breached. Accessing classified archives now, sir. Elena, start indexing everything. I want files on their operations, assets, and personnel, especially high-ranking officials. Understood. Running deep scan protocols now. Tony leaned forward as raw, unfiltered data poured into his system. His eyes flickered through rows of names, locations, mission reports, and video logs. A sinking feeling settled in his gut, his jaw clenched as he accessed the first recording, and then, his blood ran cold. Red Room Experimentation Archive, log 2379, a dimly lit, sterile laboratory. Metal tables with restraints. Rows of medical instruments laid out with precise cruelty. And in the center of the room, a child no older than 8 was strapped down, her tiny limbs thrashing against the steel bindings. She was screaming. Not in the way a child screams when they're afraid of the dark. This was raw, guttural agony. A scientist, clad in a white coat, injected a thick, glowing serum into her arm. She convulsed violently, her back arching off the table as her veins bulged beneath her skin. Blood vessels ruptured in her eyes, turning them a horrifying shade of red as she gasped for air. Subject 2379 unstable. Increasing dosage. The child's screams turned into a hoarse gurgle. Blood dripped from her nose. Her fingers clawed at the metal restraints until her nails ripped from their beds, and then, flatlined. A monitor beeped. The scientist sighed. Another failure. Dispose of the body. A soldier approached, unfastening the restraints, and with a casual flick, dumped the lifeless child onto a pile of corpses in the corner. Small, fragile bodies stacked on top of each other like discarded trash. Tony's hands curled into fists. His breathing was slow. Controlled. Dangerous, but he clicked on the next video, and the next, each one worse than the last. Red Room Training Archive, Log 3101, a group of girls, no older than 12, stood in a straight line, their expressions vacant. Hollow. A man in a crisp suit paced in front of them. Lesson 3. Obedience. He gestured toward one of the girls. She stepped forward, her hands trembling. Kill the girl next to you. The girl hesitated. A mistake. A gunshot echoed through the room, and she crumpled to the ground, a single bullet between her eyes. The instructor turned to another girl. You. Pick up the gun. The girl did. Kill the girl next to you. She didn't hesitate. The gun fired. A dull thud as another body hit the floor. A twisted game of survival. By the end of the video, only one girl remained standing. She was covered in blood, and she didn't even flinch. Then, the bastard stopped in front of another girl. She was smaller than the others, her red hair disheveled, her green eyes flickering with barely contained fear. You failed your last assessment, the instructor said coldly. The girl flinched but said nothing. The instructor stepped aside, revealing another widow, a slightly older girl. Expression blank, posture rigid. She held a knife in her hands. Correct the failure, the instructor ordered. The red-haired girl's eyes widened in horror. Please, no. The blade slashed across her throat before she could finish. Blood sprayed across the pristine floor. The dying girl gasped, clutching her neck, her body convulsing. The other widows didn't even blink. Failure is not tolerated, the instructor said simply, turning back to the group. Continue. Tony inhaled sharply, his stomach twisting. Red Room Obedience Test, Log 5420, an older widow in her late teens, or 20s, stood in front of a high-ranking Red Room official. Her posture was perfect. Her expression devoid of emotion. The official studied her for a moment before giving a simple command. Kill yourself. The widow didn't hesitate. She brought her hands to her throat, and ripped out her own veins with her nails. Blood sprayed across the cold, sterile floor. Her body convulsed as she choked on her own lifeblood, her eyes wide, but not afraid, obedient. Even as she died, she didn't resist. The official simply nodded. Perfect. End log. Red Room Graduation Archive, Log 9999, a dimly lit auditorium. Lined up in perfect formation stood a dozen women. No, not women. Weapons. Their faces were expressionless, their eyes hollow. Each one bore the scars of training, both visible and unseen. They did not fidget, did not breathe too fast, did not betray even a flicker of emotion. They were the survivors. The best. The perfect widows. A man stood before them. Tall, clad in a black suit, his face obscured by a silver mask. A voice-modulated rasp emerged from beneath the metal. Today, you are no longer children. No longer weak, no longer disposable. You are the culmination of years of sacrifice. The embodiment of strength. The very essence of control. He paced before them, his hands folded behind his back. You are widows. A synchronized step. A perfectly timed blink. You are weapons. A slow exhale. Not one of them moved. You do not feel. You do not hesitate. You obey. Silence. Then he turned to one of the girls standing at the front of the formation. She was young, maybe 20, maybe younger. Her raven-black hair was cut at sharp angles, and her eyes had that emotionless gaze. She looked just like Natasha, but there was no warmth in her green eyes. No soul. Who are you? Dreykov asked. Widow, she answered robotically. What is your purpose? To obey. The footage ended. Tony Stark leaned back in his chair, his entire body rigid. His jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. A metallic taste filled his mouth. He hadn't even realized he had bitten the inside of his cheek. Slowly, deliberately, he exhaled, and then, he spoke. Elena. Yes, sir. Let's burn these bastards down. He cracked his fingers. But let's make sure they don't get an easy death. This story continues. Subscribe to the channel for the remaining episodes. Thank you for watching and liking the channel.